There's a method Machiavelli wrote about that most people will never tell you, not because it doesn't work, but because it works too well. And when something reveals the raw mechanics of human desire this clearly, it makes people uncomfortable. It exposes a truth we'd rather ignore, that the person who cares less holds the power. That absence creates more obsession than presence ever could, and that sometimes the fastest way to make someone hunt you down is to completely disappear. This isn't about playing games. This isn't about being cruel. This is about understanding a fundamental law of human psychology that operates whether you acknowledge it or not. Machiavelli understood it 500 years ago. Modern psychology has confirmed it. And if you're tired of watching someone lose interest the moment you show yours, you need to hear this. Because here's the pattern most men live through and never understand. You meet someone, there's chemistry, you feel it, she feels it. Everything seems aligned, so you do what every movie, every song, every piece of advice tells you to do. You show interest, you text back quickly, you make yourself available, you pursue, you prove you're interested, and then, slowly or suddenly, she pulls back. The energy shifts, messages get shorter, plans get vaguer, and you're left confused because you did everything right. You were honest, you were available, you showed you cared, and somehow that became the problem. This is where most men make the fatal mistake. They chase harder, they text more, they try to fix whatever went wrong, they explain their feelings, they seek reassurance, and with every move, they push her further away. Not because she's playing games, but because they've violated a fundamental principle of desire. They've removed the one element that makes pursuit possible: mystery, distance, the space where imagination and obsession grow. Machiavelli wrote about this in a different context, but the principle is the same. He said it's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But what he really understood was this: humans assign value to what feels scarce, unpredictable, and just out of reach. The moment something becomes too available, too predictable, too easy, it loses its power. Not because people are shallow, but because our brains are wired to pursue what retreats and ignore what pursues us. This is the dark method, strategic withdrawal, and it's not about ignoring someone to manipulate them. It's about understanding that your presence loses value when it has no contrast. That attention means nothing if it's constant. That desire cannot exist without distance. And that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Let me give you a real example. A guy I know, 32, works in finance, met a woman through mutual friends. They went out twice. Both dates went well. Conversation flowed. She laughed. She touched his arm. All the signs were there. So he did what felt natural. He texted her the next day, made plans for the weekend, sent her a funny message on Wednesday, asked how her week was going on Thursday. Every message got a shorter response. Every question got a delayed answer. By Friday, she canceled their plans with a vague excuse about work. He could feel her slipping away, and every instinct told him to fight for it, to reach out, to ask what changed, to fix whatever he broke. But instead, he did something different. He stopped, completely. No follow-up text, no checking in, no explanation. He just went silent. Not out of anger, not to punish her, but because he realized he'd been giving away something valuable for free. His attention, his time, his energy. And she had no reason to value it because it was always there. 3 days passed. Nothing. He focused on his life, hit the gym, worked on a project he'd been putting off, went out with friends, didn't check his phone every 10 minutes, didn't craft the perfect message in his head. He just existed without her in his attention, and on the 4th day, she texted him. Not a casual message, a long one, asking how he'd been, mentioning something reminded her of him, suggesting they reschedule. The energy was completely different. She was pursuing now, not because he played a game, but because his absence created space for her to feel the loss of his presence. Here's what happened in her mind during those 3 days. At first, relief. She had space, no pressure. But then, slowly, something else. A nagging thought. Why hasn't he reached out? Doesn't he care? Did I mess this up? Is he seeing someone else? Every hour that passed without contact made her think about him more, not less. Her brain started filling the silence with questions, with doubt, with the fear that maybe she misjudged his interest. that maybe she lost something she wanted, and by day 4, that fear turned into action. She reached out, not because he chased her, but because he stopped. This is the dark psychology behind obsessive pursuit. Our brains are wired to want what we can't have. Psychologists call it reactance theory. When our freedom to access something is threatened, we want it more. When someone is always available, our brain categorizes them as secure low priority, already won. But the moment they become unavailable, uncertain, potentially lost, our brain shifts them to high priority. Must pursue, must reclaim, must win back. This isn't manipulation. This is just how desire works. You see it everywhere. The restaurant with a 3-month wait list becomes more desirable than the empty one next door. The job that's hard to get feels more valuable than the one that hired you on the spot. The person who doesn't text back immediately becomes more interesting than the one who responds in seconds. It's not fair, it's not romantic, but it's real, and ignoring it doesn't make you noble. It just makes you powerless. But here's where most men get this wrong. They think strategic withdrawal means playing games, ignoring text to seem busy, creating fake distance while obsessively checking for responses. That's not power. That's desperation with a mask on. Real withdrawal requires something deeper, genuine detachment. The ability to shift your focus away from the outcome and back onto your own life because she can feel the difference. She can sense whether your silence comes from abundance or scarcity, from genuine disinterest or calculated strategy, and only the real version triggers the response you want. So let me break down the 4 strategic moves that make this method work without turning you into someone you're not. First, recognize the moment you've overinvested. This is the hardest part because it requires self-awareness. You've overinvested when you're thinking about her more than she's thinking about you, when you're initiating every conversation, when you're more excited about the connection than she is, when you're doing the emotional labor while she coasts. The moment you notice this imbalance, stop. Don't announce it. Don't explain it. Just stop adding energy to something that's only flowing one direction. Second, redirect your attention to something real. This isn't about pretending to be busy. It's about actually being engaged in your life. Hit a personal goal. Start a project. Deepen a friendship. Learn something new. The withdrawal only works if it's backed by genuine focus elsewhere. Because when she reaches back out, and she will, you need to have actually moved forward. Otherwise, you're just waiting by the phone pretending not to care, and that's not power, that's performance. Third, when she re-engages, don't collapse back into pursuit mode. This is where most men lose it. She texts. They feel relief. They rush back in with full attention. All the neediness she pushed away comes flooding back, and she pulls away again. Instead, match her energy. Be warm but not desperate. Engaged but not available on demand. Show her that your attention is valuable because you have other places to put it. This isn't a game, it's a boundary. You're teaching her that access to you requires reciprocal effort. Fourth, never use withdrawal as punishment. The moment this becomes about making her suffer, you've lost the plot. This method works because it creates natural consequences for low investment. When someone doesn't value your presence, your absence reminds them what they're missing. But if you're doing it to hurt her, to get revenge, to prove a point, the energy is wrong, she'll feel it. And instead of desire, you'll create resentment. The goal isn't to win, it's to create a dynamic where both people are invested, where effort flows both ways, where your value is recognized because you recognize it first. Now here's the mental training that makes all of this possible. Real detachment. And you can't fake this. Your brain will know. So try this. Next time you feel the urge to reach out, to check in, to fix the silence, pause, close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, and ask yourself this question. If she never responded again, would I be okay? Not happy about it, but fundamentally okay. Can you imagine your life continuing without her in it? Can you see yourself thriving, growing, finding joy elsewhere? If the answer is no, if your sense of worth is tied to her response, then you're not ready to withdraw strategically. You're still in scarcity mode, and any distance you create will just be torture for you. But if you can genuinely feel okay with either outcome, if you can hold space for the possibility that this might not work out and your life will still be full, then you're operating from real power. Then your withdrawal isn't a tactic. It's a reflection of your actual state. You're not playing unavailable. You are unavailable because you have a life that matters more than any single connection. And that energy, that genuine outcome independence, is what triggers obsessive pursuit. Not because you're withholding, but because you've become genuinely rare. There's a dangerous line here though, and you need to see it clearly. This method can turn you into someone cold, someone who treats connection like a chess game, someone who stops feeling and starts calculating every move. And if you cross that line, you'll win the game, but lose yourself. You'll get the obsessive pursuit you'll have her chasing, but you won't feel anything real when she catches you, because you've trained yourself to operate from strategy instead of authenticity. So use this method as a correction, not a lifestyle. If you've been over-investing, withdraw until the balance is restored. If you've been chasing, stop until she starts to pursue. But once the dynamic is healthy, once there's mutual investment and genuine reciprocity, put the strategy down, be present, be available, be real. Because the goal was never to keep her hunting forever. It was to create a foundation where both people value what they have because they know what it feels like to almost lose it. Machiavelli's darkest method isn't about control, it's about understanding the economics of desire. That value is created through scarcity, that pursuit requires distance, that obsession grows in the space where certainty used to be, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let someone realize what they're about to lose, not to manipulate them, but to give them the chance to choose you consciously instead of taking you for granted unconsciously. The man who knows this holds a power most people never find. Not the power to make someone obsess over him, but the power to walk away from connections that don't honor his value, to recognize when his presence is being wasted, to create space for people who are ready to meet him with equal investment, and to never again beg for attention from someone who should be grateful to have it. That's the real method, not withdrawal as manipulation, but withdrawal as self-respect. And when you operate from that place, you don't need techniques, you don't need strategies, because your life becomes so full, so purposeful, so genuinely engaging, that your attention becomes naturally scarce, and the right people will hunt you down not because you made them, but because they can't afford not to. So if you've been chasing someone who keeps pulling away, try this. Stop, not forever, not to punish them, but long enough to remember who you were before they became your focus. Long enough to rebuild the life that made you interesting in the first place. Long enough for them to notice your absence and wonder why it bothers them more than they expected. And if they don't come back, if your absence doesn't register, then you just learned something valuable. They were never going to value your presence, and the withdrawal just saved you months of wasted energy. Drop a comment and tell me about a time when stepping back gave you more power than leaning in ever did. What changed when you stopped chasing? I want to hear your story. And if this hit different, if this revealed something you needed to see, hit that like button and subscribe. Because we're just getting started on the psychology most people are too afraid to talk about. This is Dark Psyche, where silence becomes strength.